John joins the ladies in the Blue Rinse Brigade, the chuntering chorus of Reeve Gauge girls, quilted coats and clouds of magnolia, deceptively sweet for the devilish tongues when the tram arrives 2 minutes late. It's a funny old ride nowadays, considering everything that's happened, everything that's changed as his life passed by, and how it all looks destitute and foreign. And as the tram takes John from Mayling Bridge down Home Lane to Hillsborough Corner, and down Langsett Road to Shalesmoor where he worked for most of his life, the buildings baffle him one by one, as if he's travelling through Stockport or Stuttgart or Sydney. And as so often on the journey that saw various degrees of wrinkles in his grimace, all beneath an unflinching hairstyle, John exits the tram at Shalesmoor and shuffles across the roundabout. There's a big, tall, shiny bastard of a building right there on the corner, driven like a stake through the heart of the cobbles, with its glass exterior, its laminate flooring, its jaunty angles and its young professionals. The same bunch of saps in the suits that surround him, dodging swarms of students by the inch, eyes locked insatiably on intergalactic gadgets, limbs all on autopilot, minds in a trance. He'd clip him round the bloody ear if he gave him half a chance. It makes him feel sick. We're meant to be in Sheffield. The crowd parts and the traffic stops, and he's standing on the corner of Doncaster Street. There it is, next to the second-hand car garage, the beacon of his former being. John finds his brain tingling in places he'd long since forgotten. His weary, exhausted and cobwebbed exterior reflected with serenity by the old Ship Inn, his beloved dram shop, the haunted tavern of Kelham Island and the principal owner of his deep-rooted nostalgia, still not in his stomach as though the decades had been days. It was inside the walls of his tavern in 1957, shortly after Macmillan told Bedford we've never had it so good, that his spectacled gaze caught sight of Edith and he danced for the very first time. She finding her second love, John his one and only. He has to steady himself as he scans the chalkboard. A glimpse of the Ship Inn 2016. It paints a pitiful portrait of the house he used to know. Free Wi-Fi, jacket potatoes, artisan taps, ales from a far afield as Saltaire, Huddersfield and Ossett. West Yorkshire. He passes the Nichols building where his cousin Roy once worked, turns up Shepherd Street. Luminous condoms scatter the pavement, graffiti, empty warehouses. He turns left onto Scotland Street, a Chinese supermarket, a paintball emporium. His head starts spinning and he goes to sit down, but he can't seem to move for broken glass. The sooner he gets this over with, the better. This is what he's dreaded since the day he's been alone. Beyond the events of this morning's auction, he sees no reasonable remaining existence. John rests against the doorframe of A.E. Dowson Sons, as though he's back at the crematorium for Edith's last farewell. The room seems a lot busier than it ought to be on a Saturday morning, or at least busier than he'd expected, busier than he'd hoped, which, to be perfectly honest, meant anybody being there at all. Every person that enters the room now poses a potent threat. He's offered a seat but decides to decline and pace around on tenterhooks. He'd never struck himself as being particularly sentimental, but now he stands there choking on the simplest of artefacts and wrestling with the will to dart outside. A few lots pass with mild amusement. Cigarette cards, 45s, stuff anybody would sell, stuff John one man collected himself if he could bring himself to bother. They almost serve as fleeting anaesthetic, providing brief distractions from his thoughts. But all the while he knows it's his possessions creeping forward and he finds himself completely out of sorts. Because, and John said this several times, when all's been said and done, they're not his possessions at all. He might well own them by law, might have every God-given right to do whatever the hell he likes with them. Christ, most of them have been in his living room for 40-odd years. But those ticketed items at the back of a room, tucked behind a Chesterfield armchair, those possessions are only Edith's. The auctioneer calls on a necessary break and John takes a step outside. The breeze that sweeps down Scotland Street sends a chill right through his bones. His bottom lip quivers. He hides it with a scowl. "Don't be such a silly old fool," he snaps. "She's dead. They're no more use for if you chucked him out to sea." He senses concerned awkwardness from his audience behind and deems the second half more preferable to sympathetic remarks. His lot's the first lot to bid. A selection of vintage furniture and homeware, all being well looked after, starting with this G-plan cabinet. G-plan cabinet, lot 615, who'd like to start? John's fragile chest contracts as the sturdy G-plan cabinet that Edith's parents donated on their 10th wedding anniversary is pawned so candidly for cash. The air-call suite from Midvale Avenue, the Ferguson radiogram she cherished in the 70s, the wedding dress she'd snoozed in every single Christmas, and her father's set of medals from the war. Edith's existence in a bundle of banknotes, 60 years of memories in 20 measly minutes. Wheelers and dealers, hustlers and pimps, thrusting envelopes and bidding notes and wedges full of cash into a fist, no longer fluent in the currency of value.